We are live. I am super excited. We have an amazing guest right now, and I'm gonna set it off with her introduction. Okay, we're gonna do this right. Give the fire, give the energy, give the power. Okay, a master educator and practitioner of presence. This lovely lady has worked with thousands of students for over 20 years. She has shared her gift and specialty internationally in places such as Canada, India, Argentina, Germany, and much more. Merging art with entrepreneurship, pioneering plays, writing masterpieces, acting and showcasing her spirit on and behind the stage. She understands the importance of you. We have today a self-expression specialist that can help you be beautiful, elegant, and exciting in your own persona, teaching you a unique way to capture who you are. Let's welcome artistic entrepreneur and playwright, Paula Wing. Thank you, Paula. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for those juicy words. I think I can live up to them. Holy mother.
Like I said, the big thing for me is I know you. I think like
Yeah.
a lot of the individuals that are watching this, that are live or watching the replay or even listening on the Entrepreneur Secrets podcast, they don't know your gift and your ability. And I figured the best way for me to highlight it is through that powerful intro. So I'm grateful to have you here. I'm always joyous having you and being in your presence, shall I say? But let's get into the fun for today. So I think
let's do it.
Right? Let's rock this. So my first question for you is, who is Paula Wing? So everybody out here can get a feel. Who's Paula?
Oh my God. I'm someone who's always, I'm lucky. I always knew what I wanted in one way, and in another way, it found me. So I wanted to be in the theater from very, very young. I wanted to act. I wanted to express myself. And I became an actor. I went to the National Theatre School of Canada, and I became an actor. And then I started writing. The first thing I wrote was something for me to perform in because I was bored at home. And it was almost like a home movie. I wrote about someone I adored, who was the librarian at the National Theatre School, who was this wild, and in fact, I think she was one of the people in my life whose presence was so powerful. She had lived through the war, she had gone through these amazing things, but you could go into her office and say, oh my God, they don't have egg salad today in the caf. And she would be like, oh, terrible. Oh my God, baby, are you going to be okay? Like she would totally be with you in your, and I think I took a lot from her. So she was the first play I wrote, and I like to say that I realized that I can act, that I am a writer, and that I was meant to teach. That I when I first began teaching a little over 20 years ago, thanks to my ex-husband, I needed. My marriage broke up. I went, oh my God, it's a disaster. What do I do now? And I began teaching, and I found myself in that work. I found myself in the practice of being with people and accompanying them on their journey. So I would say I am an accompanier.
Wow. Now I think you kind of made a point there, which I want to share with the viewers and the listeners. There's usually a moment in your life that causes you to change, and I talk about it in the Reboot book, a period of turbulence, and I kind of mentioned it in an earlier seminar where I said you pivot. You don't really know what's happening, but that power of being present of who you are can put you in a position of power, And
Yeah.
I think I kind of love for you to touch on that. Like, how did you become so aware of what you needed in that time and figure that out?
You know, it was, as you say, it was instinctive, I think. I like in my, I teach teachers at the University of Windsor, and I like to talk to them about something I learned a few years ago, which is called transformation theory.
Yeah.
Um, and it's broken into three parts. And the first part is disorientation. Um, and I always say I'm not crazy about that word because it sounds too clinical. Disorientation is awful. It
Mm.
just, it feels awful. It's so confusing, and you feel like you're flailing and you don't know what you're doing. And but if you can think, as I have tried to think since I learned about it, of that disorientated feeling, that sense of free fall almost, is actually the beginning of a creative movement.
Mm.
And that if you can stay, because what I tried to do at the very beginning, which is what I think a lot of us try to do when we're disoriented, is I tried to get out. I
Yeah.
remember saying, when my marriage broke up, I remember saying to people, I want it to be 2 years from now, and I want to be saying, wow, that was a hard time.
Mm.
I don't want to be in this hard time. I want to be on the other side talking about all the lessons I learned,
Yeah.
because that's so much easier.
Yep.
So I flailed. I grabbed at things. I applied for work that I didn't, and I lied about being interested in it.
Mm.
And somehow, in what I chose to kind of flail around with, I found this one thing. And
Mm.
I make it sound like, and then everything was okay. And that's not what it was like. I
Yeah.
found it, I did it once, and I thought, oh my God. Like, I remember the class, I remember their faces. They were in grade 4. We did medieval times. I thought, oh my God, this is it. And I
Mm.
didn't work again for a year.
Wow.
Like, I was, you know, temping in offices and doing work that was so mind numbing and awful.
Mm.
Um, and I think in those moments, I love that that biblical phrase, we walk by faith and not by sight.
Yep.
And I think it is so difficult to walk by faith. The moments when you most need it are the moments when there's no evidence that it's going to be justified,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
how, I mean, some people have religious feeling, or their church, or um, I think I had a combination of um, good friends, family, and I began practicing yoga very seriously, and
Mm.
that discipline carried me on days when I felt totally like nothing was ever going to get better ever.
There's so much you kind of pointed out there, and I kind of want to dance between the transformational theory mindset and like the power of presence and distortion and not really knowing what's happening in certain windows of your life. And I think like what you highlighted was you knew something was wrong or something didn't fit.
Yeah,
And when you recognize that, you decided to take that leap of faith and just be like, I don't really know what's going to happen, but I know within myself. So here's my question for you. What were you doing to build up that level of clarity for yourself before you made those decisions? Did you have clarity, or like, I kind of want to get into that.
um, no, I had lived a very long time in my head,
Yeah.
and I could justify lots of things in my head. I could say, no, I can stay in this relationship because it's okay. I can make it work. I can make this work. I can make the poverty work. I can make supporting us both work. I can make, and it wasn't working.
Yep.
And it was when I literally stopped trying to justify things and went with feeling.
Yep.
Just with, I'm sorry, that was my, I'm just gonna do that so it won't ring again. I went with my gut. I remember really clearly the moment I decided to leave. It was a physical feeling, like of ties being broken.
Yep.
We were on the phone, he said something, and literally I thought, I gotta go.
Yep.
And I was out within 2 hours. Like I was out. And
Wow.
so from that moment, I kind of went by, I feel like I should do that. And I think too, in that disorientation period, you make mistakes.
Yep.
My joke during the year was, don't buy shoes. Every pair of shoes I bought were too small when I got them home. Every one. Like, it's just like, I can't make a decent decision. I'm making all the wrong decisions. I had a horrible temp job, like a data entry job that was just mind numbing. And I made all kinds of mistakes. And I think somewhere I just thought, well, I'll do a lot of things and something will hit.
Sick. Yeah.
And as I say, this one thing that I did, this teaching gig that I did, yeah, it hit. But the company that hired me wasn't able to give me any more work for almost a year. Once that year was up, I got a lot of work and I was able to stop doing jobs that literally sucked out my liver. But I think it really felt almost like going to your animal brain or going to a level of just you're responding and I think this.
Yeah.
And you hit a wall and you go, whoa, that hurt. Okay, I think that. And somehow every time you hit a wall and you're able to pick something else, it's like you show yourself that you're okay. You have proof that you're resilient. I think sometimes people talk about resilience, but sometimes I feel like they're talking about it from a place of they haven't been tested recently.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And those tests, again, they don't feel great, but they are a pattern of you being able to respond. And so you can trust yourself to respond.
Trust yourself to respond.
And so if you can respond, you can figure, ultimately, you can find your way out.
And I think that even goes deeper into the pattern, right? Like we talk a lot about this individually, just in our conversations. Like if you can recognize the pattern that you go through in periods of conflict, if you can recognize the pattern that you go through in periods of success, once you recognize that sequence, you can duplicate it, right? And if you can you talked about it even earlier, if you can recognize what causes turmoil or conflict in your life, you can break it to experience something different. And I think that's where you kind of talked about that distortion, that period of uncertainty where you're like, I don't know. We talked about operating in the invisible. I'm going to pull on that from my friend Paul Edwards that I interviewed a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Right? Where you start operating in an area that is not normal to you, but intuitively it's where you're supposed to go.
Yes. But you need practice listening to that part of yourself, I think. Because a lot of our schooling, a lot of our socialization shuts down that voice and tells us not to trust it and tells us to follow this person or this rule or this thing. And so to actually practice serving that voice
Hmm.
You feel frightened. Like, I think breaking a pattern, the way you're talking about, like recognizing, okay, this is my pattern and I'm going to break it. The first 2 or 3 or even 5 times you try to break it, it will be very frightening. And a couple of times at least you'll revert, you'll go
Yep.
back.
Yep.
Because the feeling of like, I don't know, is so strong.
Yep.
Um, and that's resistance comes to test you. I,
Hmm.
and and resistance tells you, I think the strength of your resistance, I have this in writing all the time. The strength of my resistance is directly related to how much I want to do something and how much I'm afraid that I won't measure up to my greatest ideals for it.
Wow.
And if I am really afraid, my resistance is really big. I'm face down in a bag of chips watching cat videos, like, or in my case, baby videos. But
I get it. I get it. It's interesting how you kind of highlighted the emotion. I think when you're driven to take action and change any area of your life, there's a feeling you get, and
yes,
I kind of want to talk about that. Like, what is the purpose of that level of awareness and presence when it comes to business and life? Like, what would you say that is?
what is the purpose of?
Having that level of presence and
Oh,
awareness
okay. Um,
and even value. What would you say the value is in that?
the value, it's invaluable because you are always yourself,
Wow.
and because you become more and more able to be yourself everywhere at all times. You're not performing for anybody. You're not trying to make anybody something, or you are giving what you have to give. You are offering, I would say, what you have to offer, knowing its value,
Wow.
knowing that it's powerful. And if it doesn't hit somebody as powerful, I mean, similar to our conversation yesterday, I think I still respond, what? But then I can step back and say, okay, it's not for you. Or what do I have to learn from this moment? What is this moment telling me? And I think that having an awareness and being able to act on your instinct,
Hmm.
whatever happens, it's yours too. Your mistakes are yours, your victories are yours. There's an African American playwright called Pearl Clegg, and in the forward to a play, she said, if there are any mistakes, how often writers say this, if there are any mistakes in this text, I claim responsibility, but I also claim any magic that you experience.
Wow.
And I really loved that. I know, I own my power and I own my frailty. I own it all.
So there's something that I was actually working on just like a couple days ago. I'm working on the scheduler for the Reboot coaching program, and there was a section I wrote in. I was like trying to figure out the worksheet, the way I want the worksheet to look like, and I'm like, this it's missing one thing. And you actually said it without realizing you said one of the sections I created, which is called meaningful moments. So it's an activity that I kind of just thought about, where you go through life, you go through a day. How much time are you taking for yourself to be aware of those meaningful moments? To you, not what someone else thinks is meaningful, but to you, what is meaningful in that day? What was a breakthrough for you in that day? What was a roadblock that you faced that day that you learned something from? And I think, like, we talked about it in our call where if you ask the right question to yourself, you'll get the answer you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now,
Go ahead.
You want to go? I guess you want to go on. I'll
Oh,
let you. I'll let you run. I was going to ask another question, but I want you to run on that, and I'll ask the other question.
I think that's a key gift of presence. If you are present, you don't miss those moments.
Wow.
And I think that was something when I first taught youth, meaning kids between 16 and 19 at Soul Pepper. They taught me that. Their aliveness was so engaging for me, so exciting, so in the moment that I didn't want to leave the moment. I wanted to be with them in it.
Yeah.
And so I think I remember I used to have moments in that I taught Monday to Friday, 10 to 5. And I would have moments in the day where I would just think, oh my God, I would not change places with God right now. I'm exactly where I should be.
Yep.
And even the hard moments, I felt they were disassembling me and making me better as a person. But that aliveness to the moment is what enables you not to miss it.
Wow. That aliveness in the moment enables you to not miss that moment.
Because I think when I was younger, I missed a lot of things.
Yeah.
Things would go right. I mean, famously, I was going to say, but when I had my first play produced, I took all the money and I thought I got to fulfill a big dream. And my big dream, was to go to Tonga. Because I had seen the King of Tonga, and he was this massive guy, like he weighed about 500 pounds, and he was at the royal wedding, and he came up the aisle on his own in a tuxedo. He walked up the aisle like, I am the sexiest man alive. And I thought, I gotta go there. I gotta go to that place. So I went, and I arrived, and I had that total disorientation. I didn't know what I was doing there. I didn't know. I felt really, really disoriented. So I traveled further. I went to the most remote island group in the country, and I got there, and it was just even more crazy. So I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm gonna research a play. I'm gonna meet a writer here, and I'm gonna talk to this writer. And so I found a woman whose auntie was a writer. She drove me to her auntie's village, and I met this lady, Kayanetti. She was a dance maker.
Wow.
And I interviewed her, like you're interviewing me. And I asked her about all these things, about, how do you make a play, whatever. And she told me, someone asks her, like for the National Day, and they tell her the story they want her to do. She creates a dance, she writes the music, she rehearses, she tells me the whole thing. And I say, wow, that's so amazing. I'm a creator too, I'm a storyteller too. Do you sometimes think of a story before somebody asks you? And she said, no, I wait to be asked. I said, okay. So when was the last time you were asked? And she said, 4 years ago.
Wow.
And I was like, 4 years ago? Don't you miss it? We had spoken entirely in English to that point, but she didn't understand the question, so it was translated for her. And she still didn't get it. She was like, what do you mean? I have it. And that went right over my head. And I said, well, no, but I mean, okay, I mean, like, if I didn't make a story for 4 years, I would miss it. I would worry. I would worry that I wouldn't be able to do it again. And she said, well, do you have it? And I was like, well,
Wow.
yeah, right? And her thing was, you have it. It's not, and then I said, she said, okay, so are you telling me that you have it, but sometimes you wake up and you think you don't have it? And I said, yeah. And she said, so do you wake up in the morning and think, is that my arm? But I had never considered it like that,
Yeah.
it's, I have it. I don't have to seek it. I have to allow it. That's all.
Wow. There was a conversation I had with an entrepreneur last week. You know, we're just chatting, very similar conversation, just talking about life, where they're at, what they're building, what they're achieved, and they actually retired. So they reached a point in their life where they retired. They retired early, and I remember I asked him, I was like, "You were really go, like you wanted to do a lot of stuff, and you seemed really busy." And he's like, "Yeah, that's how I was. I was always hungry. I was always doing something because I wanted more. I always wanted more." And then I asked him this question. I'm like, what about now? Do you feel fulfilled?
Ah, what did he
And
say?
his response to me was yes. And my mind was like blown when I heard it from him, because his mindset at the time when I first met him was go, do more, do more, do more, do more, must have more. Yet he reached a point where he was so aware, he was so present, was so knowledgeable of what mattered to him, that he recognized, I'm fulfilled.
Mm.
And I think that goes very well with the story you just shared with me. There's sometimes where I think in the journey of entrepreneurship and even just life, people just go through this mindset where like, I gotta have more, I gotta do more, I gotta do this thing, this is the next thing I gotta do. You end up just being blocked out by noise and not realizing, what do you want?
You know, I also think that question can be terrifying.
Yes, yeah, it
You
is.
know, what do you want? I don't know.
Yep.
I and I think I have certainly met people who would rather have somebody else tell them what they want.
Yep.
They're afraid of what they might want, or they're afraid they don't want anything. I don't know, but for some people, that question, what do you want, goes to the core of their whole life and can be very, very scary.
It is. And I found that that's very common with a lot of the individuals I've had conversations with, because it's easy to pretend, this is presence right here, right? It's easy to pretend like what's happening is what you want. It's easy to pretend. It's easy to say, it's not ideal, but I can work with this.
Yes.
I can tolerate this for now.
Yeah.
And the for now can turn to forever.
So easily.
If you're not present to what you need to change now, right? So I think my question for you is, how has presence impact your story? Having that level of presence.
It's brought me the greatest joy, I would say. Yeah, I feel my closest friend is a director, and she said to me, which I apply to my own work. She said that she became a good director when she was able to decrease her importance and increase her presence. And I think that presence, as I said, brings you into the moment. It allows you to it allows you to see yourself kind of in real time and practice living, not thinking about living, not planning living, but living.
Yeah.
And going for what, I mean, I think your friend has fulfillment. That's so beautiful to hear somebody say, I'm fulfilled. Alice Walker said about her mother that she spent many years in heaven before she died, that she was so happy on earth that really it was a heavenly life, and she was, and I want that.
Yeah.
You know, that and I think you presence helps you achieve a sense of fulfillment, a sense of being where you should be and doing what you should do, rather than, is this right, or justifying, or as we were saying, making it work. But actually, it's working.
Yep. I think
Right? Working.
we were talking about intuitive action previously, right? Not like on this call, but like a little like yesterday or so, where we were saying when you start acting intuitively, where you're aware of yourself, of your surroundings, things just happen. Like,
Yeah.
not that you're forcing it to happen, but they manifest themselves based off of the intent and the alignment
You
of
draw things to you. You draw. I just was thinking of someone I knew back in the horrible years when I was working at the bank. And I knew this woman who was a financial assistant to a stockbroker. She was very good at it. And I worked there for a while, and I was acting and going and doing my, and writing and all that stuff. And she ultimately decided to leave. And she said it was partly from being around me and hearing me on the phone all the time on my, it was also her though, totally her. But she left the bank and that high paying job, and she's a dog trainer.
Wow.
And she is passionately happy and involved with dogs and lives, and she pursued something that at the time she was like, I don't know if this is a living or not, but I don't feel anything doing this. And every time I walk the dogs I'm doing in my spare time, I'm so happy, and she's learning all the time. And there's a level of mastery that you can only have if you are connected at the heart as well as with the mind.
That's big. I hope whoever is watching and listening to this is processing the gems that are being shared right now. Like, I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, when I started my first business, I had no experience in business. I had no idea how to do sales. I had no idea how to market, but I knew that was the thing I needed to do. And what a lot of people I've talked to that I would say are budding entrepreneurs, like they're at the beginning stages before they fully transform into their true self, is that doubt. And I can see where I'm going with this. It's like, I call it the demon of doubt.
Yeah.
Where it just lingers and it's just clawing at you like, oh, I don't really think you should do this thing. This thing is not really what you're supposed to do. Yet, if you have an elevated level of awareness, you can look at that doubt and be like, you don't belong here. I know where I'm supposed to be going. I'm going to manifest the thing and take that risk and take that jump. So my question for you, Miss Paul.
Yes, Mr. Femi.
Is what are some strategies, some tactics, some methods that you've seen work to help people be more present? We did one beforehand, I don't
Yeah.
want us, I'll probably share that later on with everybody, but what are some other quick ones that someone can start doing and be like, this will help me get more presence in my day-to-day, in my activities?
Well, this one is a really simple one. It's it's almost dumb. You'd almost think, oh, come on. But noticing. You know that thing where you can walk up your street for 4 years and then one day there's a house and you go, oh my God, has that house always been here? Come on. No, no. I think something I do when I'm feeling panicky or ungrounded is notice something. The tablecloth is blue. Oh, there's that inkjet pen. Literally ground yourself in what is right around you right now. There's a writing teacher called Natalie Goldberg who practices, she calls it writing practice, and you write on something. You get a prompt and you write for 10 minutes. And one of the things you do is add in what you're seeing, hearing, feeling because it makes it live. It grounds it in the moment. You're not falling into unconsciousness in your notebook. You are in your notebook and in the world. Wow. And I think trying to grounding yourself in momentary detail. And when things are really difficult, you want to get out. And there's that fight or flight, there's that, it goes right to your brain.
Yep.
Staying still. Don't make a decision right away. Stay still. Again, I've had moments in classrooms or with students or with adults where somebody says something and you just go. And you need to stop and just give yourself a second to respond. So that you don't respond out of, but anything that can help you land in the moment. I don't do it as much anymore. I used to have like a worry stone in my pocket, and I would put my hand in there and rub it kind of, and just to kind of ground me in the second, I think the details of this moment, the literal details. Sometimes I do that on the subway, or when I used to ride the subway in the last world, when I rode the subway, I would look at people and sort of think, I love those shoes. Because I used to think this is a kind of but I'd get on the subway and I think, there'd be like 100 people in this car.
Yeah.
And we're never going to meet again.
Yeah.
But we're sharing this incredibly intimate space, and we're all pretending we're not here.
That's true. Wow.
And just trying to notice people around you.
There's you actually mentioned a couple of activities that are similar to what I do.
Oh, right? What do you do?
So I had a stone that I had in my pocket in my wallet all the time. That will kind of keep me present too. So I would put my hand in my pocket and feel the stone, and it'll allow me to check back into being here, right? The activity that we did, actually, it's funny because I call it like the RX ground state, which is ironic, right? RX ground state, right? The plan or the strategy which you kind of took me through before we hopped on the live, was just feeling your body where you are. Like when you are pushing yourself beyond a breakthrough in a period of uncomfortable, probably the best way to describe it. You want to bounce out.
You do.
You want to bounce out. And I think what you highlighted is if you can stay in state and be present during that period, you'll actually produce way bigger results once that time passes.
It's also, you're making me think of the many years it took me to learn headstand and yoga. And I finally got to the point where I could do it against the wall, no problem. And then I could do it and not be against the wall, but I had to be close. I didn't know the wall was there. And then I did an intensive one year, and I said to myself, I'm not going to the wall for 40 days. For this whole 40-day intensive, I'm doing 40 days of classes. I'm not going to the wall. Well, it was horrendous. And I've been doing the pose probably for 8 or 9 years by then. And I fell down every day. And there were some days when I was in such a rage about it. And we got to like day 36 or something like that, 37. And my teacher came behind me before I kicked up, and she said, I'm here. And so then I had no problem. I kicked up no problem because I knew she was there. And she put her arms around my legs and she said, you're one exhalation away from this, just one. And that was, I thought, oh, okay, great. And then the next day I fell down 4 times.
Wow.
Then we were at day 39. And we went to do it, and I kicked up, and I literally felt like this thing of your gut. I literally felt, it felt like from across the room, the pose came to me. I just went into it. And it was thrilling, but it was also ordinary. It was this amazing moment. And when I came down, my teacher said, now you can really start to learn the pose. And I thought, what? Are you? But it is that, like, once you have a breakthrough, the way you're talking about, where you work and you work and you work and you get it. It's literally like it just shows you another vista.
Yes.
You know, there's more. And as my dad would have said, that's the good news. There's more. That is the good news.
That is the good news. You want to strive towards completeness.
Yes.
Whatever that might look like for you. I think that's kind of what I would feed off of what you're saying. You know, and be okay with being uncomfortable in that period of change.
And I think that is a lifelong practice, just as you're saying, the demon of doubt. I think that demon is always prepared to take over. So we have to practice, we have to work out in order to be strong enough for our demons when they come. Because it's not like you wrestle your demon and that's it, it never comes back. It's not like that.
Yeah.
It just gets, it figures out another way to come calling, you know?
Yep.
So I think that that we're always trying for completeness, but part of completeness is being okay with incompleteness in each moment, or, you know, in the moments before.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so here's the meaty questions right here.
Okay. All right.
A vast artistic entrepreneurial career and thousands of impacted students. What's next?
Oh my God, you're making me crazy. That's a beautiful question, and I don't know. It's interesting. When I divorced, it was like this beautiful world opened up to me, and I began teaching. It was this 20-year period. And I feel as though something new, it's time for something new or something to add. This is maybe a little weird. At the moment, it's a pandemical response, but at the moment, it's growing vegetables. I did it this summer for the first, I am doing it. I mean, if I could control the zucchini, it's a bit out of outer limits, but the land and plants and the amazing generative power. Like, it was thrilling to me during the darkest days of the pandemic to watch things in the ground just blooming.
Yeah.
Something would get pulled out like a weed, and you go back 2 days later and it's rooted, and it's like our nature is to thrive. Our nature is to to put out roots and to grow, and we can't help it, I think. I kept thinking that, looking at all the plants in the country where I was living, and their amazing resourcefulness.
Yes.
The soil is shitty, they still do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm interested in the lessons that learning about the world around me in that way can give me.
Wow. I like that. You can learn a lot. It's funny. One of my favorite plants, which you now know, is
Yes.
the fiddle leaf fig tree.
What a good name.
If you're a plant lover or you just like trees, this plant is gorgeous, and you can see it just thrive from one little thing into a massive tree. So you can learn so much from just observing things around you, and I think that's a very powerful way to do it. So thank you for sharing that. Now, here's where we start getting even deeper.
Okay.
What does success look like to you as an entrepreneur?
People come back. They want to work with you again. They recommend you to other people. An enormous amount of the teaching I've done has come like that.
Yeah.
That it's somebody telling somebody who tells somebody else. But also that I make more decisions now about what I want to do, who I want to work with, that I have a greater power of discernment. I don't just say yes. My partner, if he's watching this, is going to go, it's not true. But I'm working on not saying yes to everything. Being able to say, I don't think that's for me right now. Yep. And he's been somebody I've really learned from. He would say, why are you still doing that? You don't need to do that.
Wow.
You don't need to say yes. It's the mentality of, I think, entrepreneurs and artists that we think, if I'm asked, I have to say yes.
Yep.
I have to.
Yep.
But to get to a point where you can say, no, can I recommend so-and-so?
Yep.
They're fantastic, and they'll, but I'm doing other things now. That's what success.
I like that, because that even ties deeper into the mindset of presence at the same time. Yeah. That's really good. Now, What does success look like to you as Paula Wing?
Success for me has been learning to love someone very deeply, learning to accept care, learning to accept someone caring for me, and learning to care for them in the way that is best for them.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the longest and hardest. A very prideful person. It was a long and hard lesson, but for me, that is the success I'm most happy about in my life now.
Love it. Now, we're winding down.
Okay.
What does success look like to you for your students?
Oh, they feel pleasure. They have a taste of their own power. They want more. And they feel capable of pursuing more and finding more.
Wow. Power.
Yeah.
Love it.
Like your own power, and that not being a bullying but literally the gift you have to give.
Yeah.
The power of it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Paula, I want to thank you so much for being on the Entrepreneur Secrets podcast. And I basically want to say, like, if anyone wants to get in contact with you, how can they get in contact with you?
Oh, we talked about this before. I'm on Facebook. I'm a happy Facebook person. So you can message me through my Facebook page. I know it's terrible. I'm over 12. I've got to get a website. Someday I will. Maybe when I turn 75. You can reach me through Facebook.
Okay, deal. Anything else you want to share with the listeners and the viewers out there? Anything on presents? Anything?
Um, dare to be present.
I love it. Thank you so
Thank
much for being here.
Femi. I had a blast.
Yeah, this was amazing. And once again, if those of you that are tuned in, definitely don't forget to subscribe to the Entrepreneur Secrets podcast.
Yes, don't forget.
Don't forget and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will see you all soon.